Welcome to SQL Server Administration Basics. And this part 2 of this module, we will be covering changing default port for SQL Server, changing the default dump type for SQL Server, changing the max server memory, setting up trace flags, and finally changing the default collation for a new user database. Okay, to check the default port, first let's check into the log directory where the default log for SQL Server is kept. And now let's try to grab the error log for the keyword IPv4. Okay, so you see it shows the port number 1433. So now let's try to update the default port to something different than 1433. We will use MS SQL conf set network.tcp port and we will set it to 4444. Okay, after this it will ask us to restart the SQL server, so we'll just key in systemctl restart MS SQL server. Okay, so let's wait for the system to come up. Okay, now we'll see the output of the error log again, and if you grep you will see that the IPv4 is now pointing to 4444. Okay, so the server is basically listening to 4444 port now. Okay, so now let's connect to SQL Server using SQL CMD. So basically, the parameters will change slightly. So you will give s dot followed by a comma and then the port number, that is 4444, and then you have to key in the username as SA and the password for server administrator. Okay, so you will see you're able to connect. We'll just quit here, and the next thing we will do is try to set up the default dump type. Now in this core dump type, there are two parts. One is capture, mini, and full, and is the other one is the core dump type. Now if the capture, mini, and full is set to true, there will be two dumps created, which will be, the first one will be defined by the core dump type, and the second mini dump will be auto generated. So we will set the core dump type, mini and full, to be true, and after this the SQL server will ask for a restart, and then we will set the core dump type to also full. So this will generate all the logs that are required, including the maps for the process IDs, which will be further required to debug what related to what the actual dump had occurred. And we can see these settings being updated in again the var opt mssql conf file. So you will see the core dump type and the core, mini, and full to be set to true. Okay, so next let's try to set the max memory setting in SQL Server Linux. So first of all, let's log into the SQL Server in using SQL CMD. Okay, we'll give the default server name and then the port number, give the username as SA, and then the password for system admin. Okay, now we are logging. Let's fire svconfigure. Okay, so by default everything will not be on, or you will not be able to see anything, so you have to set the show advanced options to 1, which is by default 0. Okay, so you just have to key in show advanced option and then press, you have to also additionally give 1 as an option to set it to 1, and then fire the reconfigure again. Okay, so once you fire reconfigure and then again run spconfigure. Okay, we'll run spconfigure again with max server as the keyword. So if you give a distinct keyword, it will give you the correct output. So it has given us the only option, that is max server memory. So here you see the memory is set to 2 TB. So now if you want to set it or trim it down, we will use MS SQL conf set memory limit, and we will key in 3328, which is an MB, and post this it will ask us to restart the MS SQL server. Okay, so we'll restart the SQL server using systemctl. Okay, and after this you will be able to see the updated value of the memory in the MS SQL conf file. So to see that, we will again go to var opt mssql conf file, and here you see the memory limit is set to 3328. Okay, so now let's try to set a couple of trace flags. To do that, first of all, we'll log into SQL Server and make sure what are the trace flags that are already enabled. So we'll use SQL CMD, key in the server name, key in the port number, mention the username, and then the password for the user. Okay, so once we are logged in, let's fire dbcc trace status and key in -1. That will be global. So it will show us globally what are the trace enabled. So nothing is enabled as of now. So we'll just quit and we'll run the MSSQL conf setup, and we will use a trace flag, and we will key in two trace flags, 1222 and 1204 on, and we will restart the SQL server, and post this we'll try to connect to SQL CMD again, and then fire the dbcc trace status -1 again, which will show us globally what are the trace flags enabled, and this time you will see the two trace flags are shown, so 1204 and 12222. Okay, so now let's see the output of the MSSQL conf as well. So here also you will see that the trace flags are enabled, 1222 and 1204. So this is how we can enable the trace flags. And now in the next part, we'll try to unset one of the settings of the network port that we have done. So here we will just call unset TCP network port, and if you see the conf output, now the port number in the SQL server which was mentioned has gone. So now let's try to restart the service and then connect back using SQL CMD. So now if you see, we'll just have to restart this using systemctl restart MSSQL server, and post is done. Let's try to connect to the SQL using SQL CMD. So we'll key in, we'll go to the var opt MSSQL tools bin SQL CMD, and we'll key in s dot, and we'll give username and then the password for system admin, and you will see that we are able to log in without giving the port number. So this is how you can unset one of the parameters that was already set in the MSSQL conf file. Also, let's try to look into the error log so that we did before. So we'll go to var opt MSSQL logs, and grab uh, we'll grab the IPv4 keyword. Okay, and here you will see it has changed back to 1433. Okay, so next let's try to see what is the status of the SQL server. So we'll just type in systemctl status MSSQL server. Okay, let's try to see where we are. Hopefully we are in OPT MSSQL tools bin. So we'll just fire SQL CMD, and we'll log in as the user SA, and we'll give the password. Okay, so the intent here is to see what is the default collation or what is the present collation of SQL server. Yeah, to do that, we will choose the server property of the SQL server, and we will see the present collation is SQL Latin General CP1, CI, and AS. Okay, so we will also identify the same for all the databases that are present in sys.databases. So we'll just select name and collation name from sys.databases. Okay. Okay, so if you see all are having the same collation. So now let's quit and let's try to update the collation. So we will stop the MSSQL server first, which is a prerequisite to change the collation. Now let's fire the keyword that is MSSQL conf, MSSQL bin, MSSQL conf set collation. Okay, and this is an interactive menu, so it will give us the option to key in the collation. So we will give the collation as case sensitive and then access sensitive. Okay, so this will configure the SQL server and rebuild all the things that are required to change the uh, you know the collation of the server, and after that it will ask us to restart the service. So we will start the MSSQL server. Okay, and then we'll see the status of the SQL Server service. We will do that using systemctl status MSSQL server. So once we see that it is running, okay, then we will run to SQL CMD and then fire the same command again. Select collation, and collision underscore will select name and then collision underscore name from sys.databases. Okay, so this will give us the new collision for which we have created for all the databases, which is case sensitive and access sensitive. Okay, so here again we'll go and create a new database with a new collision. Okay, so now we'll try to quit and we'll try to revert back to the original collision. So for that we will have to stop the MS SQL server again. Okay, so once it is stopped, we'll fire the set collision command again, and here we will give the collision as case insensitive. Okay, which was the original one. Now if you fire enter, you will see the output is not as verbose as the previous one. And if you try to start SQL server and log in again, you will see that the collision is still not changed. Okay, so there is a little bit of gotcha here, which we will tell you in a minute, but let's first see whether it actually has not changed. So if you see the name and collision name from sister databases, the yeah, so you will see that the collision has not changed. So first of all, the collision has will change only when you disconnect or detach all the user databases. So we will drop the database test here, and we will stop the SQL Server service again, and we'll try to run the collision. We'll try to run the set collision command again, and this time we'll key in case insensitive again, which was the default one. Okay, and now you will see the similar kind of verbose output which we saw in the first attempt. Okay, here it will update all the index pages and everything. So this is the one of the key things to remember, that while you're changing the collision, there should be no user databases attached to the SQL server. Either you can take a backup, drop it, and then restore, and that will restore with the original collision which the database was created, or you can detach and then attach the files again. Okay, so now if you check the collision name, all the system databases have gone back to the CI, which is case insensitive, which was the original collision. Okay, and now if you try to create a new database test and then fire the keywords, yeah, you will see that the new database is created again with the same collision.